Welcome to Cooking for Real, where I'm still working on that turkey that I roasted the other day. Today we are moving on to turkey tetrazzini, which is a cheesy dish with pasta and a mushroom sauce. I'm going to make a fresh mushroom sauce, but you can always use canned cream of mushroom soup. Now before we get started, if you could like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and then the next time I put up a video, you'll see it in your feed. Thank you so much, and let's get started. What I have here is I have some water going. We're going to cook elbow macaroni. A lot of times with turkey tetrazzini, people use spaghetti, but I find this makes an easier time eating this. And in this pot, I have some homemade turkey broth that came from the bones of that turkey. We're going to add some things to that. We're going to get started on that sauce. Again, in this pan, I have turkey broth. And it's still pretty hot, but I did just turn the heat on to medium-low. And I'm going to skip the step of dissolving this flour in water and just whisk it directly in. It's a time saver, and I don't actually end up thinning the broth by adding more water to it. Now what I have here is actually just milk. I'm going to pour about a 1/4 cup in there and whisk that in. And then we are adding canned mushrooms. Now, simply said, what we want to do is to let this sit and simmer while we prepare other things. This here is the pasta, which I'm just going to give it a stir and make sure it's not sticking together. I like to boil it with the lid off just so that I can keep an eye on it, make sure it's going all right. Now while we wait for the pasta to cook, which by the way should be cooked to just before al dente, because we're going to put this in the oven, and while I struggle with this wrapper, that's simply put, we're going to cook it twice. So there's no need to cook it all the way through, otherwise we're going to end up with some mushy pasta. That was difficult. So what I have here is a smoked mozzarella. Now this is just a preference. I enjoy a smoked mozzarella. I love the extra flavor that it imparts, but by all means use the cheeses that you like. I do, however, recommend that some mozzarella goes into your tetrazzini. Now that I've gotten into it, let's just shred off a bunch of this. This is why we always work with clean hands. What I have here, I really like this cheese, so a little further. And then I have Gruyere, which this claims to be in an easy open package, we shall see. Easy peel, it says. Got there in the end. All right, you see I've used about half of this block, and we have quite a lot of cheese, and if you hear things popping, it's because I did just can a bunch of that broth. And now this is actually going to be the topping, but since we're here shredding anyway, let's go ahead and shred up some nice Parmesan. The pasta is done and it is draining. Now what I'm going to do is take some of my turkey that was left over, and I'm going to cut it up into some. That ought to do it. I'm just waiting for that sauce to thicken, so into this pan, which is a Pyrex dish meant for the oven, I am going to add most of my ingredients. So that's the turkey, and here's both of those cheeses. Sorry, now I'm just cleaning up the mess I made on the counter. Here we have my homemade mushroom sauce. It is nicely thickened. We're going to pour it right over. Let's move this around the best we can. That sauce was thin enough that it actually did get nice and in there, but I'd like to redistribute the mushrooms a bit, I think. And you can see that the cheese is already melting. Now remember, I did shred up some Parmesan. We will lightly dust the top with that Parmesan. And then another sprinkling of breadcrumbs. And now this will go into a 350-degree oven for about half an hour to 35 minutes. About 15 minutes into that, go ahead and give it a nice little rotate so that it cooks evenly. Thank you for joining me on Cooking for Real today in the second of my turkey series. It'll be a short series, don't worry. And today we made turkey tetrazzini, a very healthy, hearty meal that will feed a crowd.